Welcome to episode 3 of the Jsw432 Podcast. I'm Spike, your host, and I'm very happy to bring you this episode, which is going to further elaborate on what I talked previously regards to energy, regards to magic. Now, again, with what we're doing here, we're covering the topics of music, magic, energy, and God. And previously, we've talked about my experience of manipulating energy and using it for self-serving purposes. And it's extremely easy to create that using magic, using spells, using a variety of different self-serving rituals, such as Luciferianism, Satanism, those type of things. And I challenge, of course, everyone who's listening to this, who's interested in that, to do deep research. Witchcraft and Satanism and those type of directions of energy manipulation are not something that you could just dabble in and play with. These are very, very dense type of information, history, knowledge, and practice. What it actually does provide is from thought to material reality and facts that it evolves in our third density or third dimension. So I definitely want to bring the awareness level up to this point in regards to why not playing with negative energy. Negative energy is abundantly available in the universe. And let's talk about energy itself in the sense of music, magic, energy, and God. How does God tie into this? What is the formulation of God and energy in its relationship? And there is, of course, many teachings. And when we're talking God here on this platform, this format, I'm not relating this into religious or religion aspect of how God is being taught in our third density, third dimension here. And the reason behind that is those are actually manufactured so-called beliefs. They are done in a certain way to create a certain parameters in certain governors toward the capability of who we are. And we are literally from the same consciousness, from the same energy source as the universe or the creator or God. So let's go in, let's talk a little bit deeper in regards to the energy itself and what does the energy create or offers in regards to why is important to understand this. Now, frequency in sense of measurable frequency, like sound frequency, tonal frequency, like what you're hearing me right now, this is a frequency that is energy, that is transmitted through a wavelength. Now, these are all measurables. There is nothing in the energy aspect of it that is not measurable. As a matter of fact, the scientific community and the esoteric community, metaphysics community, everybody agrees on this level of the entire universe that we know of consists of energy expanding. Energy expanding consistently, outwardly. And this is no surprise that when we look at this energy expanding on a frequency level, we could actually measure this in sense of even from a light perspective. When we're looking at the sun, when we're looking at the stars, or anything that comes through that we are able to interpret is into a so-called a visual information that our brain then able to decipher and create a conscious so-called behavior from it. And when we do that, this wavelength is able to create a connection with us. So when we're using, let's say, light is a frequency that is travel through in wavelengths that is vibrating at a certain level of that frequency for us to decipher what information that comes from. If we were to look at water and we take the molecules of water and really break it down, It's so small that it wouldn't, if you put it in a glass, you probably wouldn't even see that drop or less than that drop of that molecule that equates to water. Now, if we were to use that analogy to energy itself, then the vastness of the universe, the vastness of what we know of now, billions of stars, billions of galaxies, billions and planets. I mean, goes on and on. So it's constantly ever evolving, ever growing, ever moving outward, expanding. Of course, there's a lot of information now available to all of us to be able to talk about the origin of the universe, the origin of so-called life forms, forms such as us, biologically DNA-driven instance of how we are able to exist in this so-called reality with our physical existence. However, the so-called, even in the physical sense, we're still exerting energy. We're still exerting this so-called force, movement, even though the measurable is a little bit different than, let's say, light waves, sound waves, even thought waves, consciousness. So with that being said, it just changes form. It doesn't really change the theory behind. It's like the difference between piano strings, guitar strings, and bass strings. They're still strings. Different gauge, different use, and different tonal. So why is this so important for us to know? Why is it important for us to build a level of acknowledgement and knowledge itself for us to basically develop our comprehension to understand energy? Let's start to look at the importance of it. If you don't understand energy and you're going about aimlessly through life, you're going to just get things that you randomly receiving because of the random output of the projection you are asking for receiving. It is just that. When we speak, like for instance, that we're in a conversation, you're taking my tonal energy wavelength and frequency. I am your projector, and I am projecting certain amount of information with this tonal frequency to you. You are, because of understanding the language, really have a key to decipher this frequency that is tonal, that comes out of my voice box, that comes through and travels through air. And it then vibrates into your eardrum. And your eardrum then deciphers this vibration to your logics and your aptitude of your brain capacity to understand the information in a sense of how you can then reply or react or participate. Think about that. Think about how important this really is to you. This is really important to everyone. For instance, ever get in an argument? Of course you have. Ever get in an argument that you start to lose the sight of the intent? Everybody has. For the simple fact, because the energy overwhelms the logic of the thought. The energy is extremely powerful force. It's because it's abundant. What is abundant on the energy is both positive and negatively charged. This is why the so-called, the concept of duality, what we deal with, the right and the left, the sun and the moon, the positive and the negative, the yin and the yang, all this is throughout our so-called teachings, ancient wisdoms, or whatever you want to use to categorize how these so-called knowledge is being taught to us. And it's something as even fundamental as the electricity that we're using, whether it's to be battery or whatever source it comes from, it has a positive and a negative to it. It's to move energy. Now, a lot of people who are not aware, and some are aware, believe it or not, will use negative energy to charge the intent. And why is that? Because the negative energy is equally powerful as the positive energy. However, it serves a different master. It brings you an entire different result. You take positive energy, you're never going to say, how am I going to get that drunk girl? Or how am I going to rob that old lady? Or how am I going to command a country? How am I going to run a so-called colony of 1,000 people under my control? You know, these are all self-serving. So the clue is right there. It's very, very simple. If you're using energy to charge your intent for self-serving purposes, you are directing negative energy into your channel. Now, of course, it's like, well, if I want to eat, that's self-serving. How could that be negative energy? Well, that is not a so-called self-serving. That's self-preserving. It's survival. It's to eat biologically. And we'll do another, of course, podcast in regards to what are you eating and how does that affect your energy? Believe me, there is so much about frequency, waves, and energy that we deal with every day that you got to be conscientious of this. You have to acknowledge the importance in our existence of what these things really mean to us. Most people think, what's the most important things in life? Well, family, money, love. Yeah, okay, I understand. But you have to remember, those paradigms are taught to you. You learned those since you were conscious, able to register information where you can then use that experience in this lifetime, in this existence. However, that is not true. That is not how the universe works. You have to do a lot of self-development, self-research, self-awareness to start to understand why are we here? What are we contributing to while we are here? What are we doing here to experience, to get what out of it? You know? And these are the key factors that you have to start to look at in regards to what am I doing every day? For some of you who has given me feedback through previous podcasts, yeah, it's making you think. Absolutely. That is exactly the intent of my podcast. My contribution through my 40 plus years of experience is to help you to start thinking self-awareness, contribution to self for self-enlightenment, self-enrichment, self-love, and of course, the greatness of a self-existence. And how is that? Okay, so let's talk about in regards to everything of the music, magic, energy, and God. If we were to play music as musicians, what we do is there is a level of self-serving gratification from music, playing music as a musician. But we all know that spark started with a certain inspiration, whatever that inspiration may be, that it motivated enough energy in our consciousness for us to pursue something that we didn't just fall in our laps and become something extraordinary overnight. The so-called savants and the incredible talents that are, and I've witnessed this 3.5-year-old girl that can play Mozart on a grand piano as if she was in her 30s. How does that happen? Well, the uniqueness of our universe. It creates unbalanced, but yet plentiful opportunities. And everybody is unique on his own. Okay? We're all unique in the sense, but we are all consciously, from our consciousness, from the same pool. If we were to take 10 buckets and went to the Pacific Ocean and dished out 10 buckets of water, the water is now separated into the bucket. The bucket is now shielding the water from going back to the ocean. But it does not deny the water is still part of the ocean. However, it is not the part of the ocean in this existence in the bucket. That is biological form of human, us, with consciousness, in understanding how we are limited in a way in this body. But is it really limiting? This is the question that you want to ask. How am I limiting? If I was to get into witchcraft and I can do spells and all of a sudden things appear, then it's not limiting at all. How about for those who always talks about power of prayer? Power of prayer. There were a so-called event that 3,000 people got together and meditated in Washington, D.C. Crime went down because they were meditating and putting consciousness, intent. They were putting energy, drawing energy from the vastness of our universe, from our Creator, and putting the intent into love, empathy, unity, compassion, those type of things into no crime. We do not want to harm each other. We do not want to hurt each other. No crime. So if we were able to do that and reduce crime, and we get a group of friends and family, and we're praying for coming through of this terrible illness, and that person comes through, oh, well, God did this. Yes, God did this. We are part of that as well. The consciousness collectively harnessed the intent, the energy, created that wavelength, and it traveled, and it went into a cellular level of awareness. That's how intent can be. And this is how deep, how robust the energy is available to every one of us. Again, if you're the kind of person that walks around every day and life sucks, I go to work, I don't like being here. And believe me, I used to be there. I've been to a job where the first thing I say is, good morning, how are you doing? Doesn't this suck? Yeah, sure does. And then proceed to spend 9.5 hours in a place that sucked. Why would you do that? Why would anybody do that? Number one answer, oh, well, money. Well, gee, isn't there many different ways to make money? There sure is. As a matter of fact, if you look at most people who makes a lot of money, they don't really put any effort into intent. They put intent into control. So that will be another podcast. But there's plenty of people out there talking about this. This is not new by any stretch of the means. David Wilcock has talked about law of one. This is the information that was channeled through from other terrestrial race known as the Blue Avians. Is this reality or is this all made up? Here's how I'm going to leave you with this. Do some research. Look up David Wilcock. Look up Stephen Greer. Look up Corey Good. Just look him up. Just read the stuff. Just to understand what's available. As a matter of fact, if you think this whole planet has original thoughts, every one of us has an original thought, you're kidding yourself. Our consciousness are all connected. It's all collected and connected. That means past, present, the future, whatever it may be, whatever was fiction and nonfiction, whatever it may be, it's all registered as part of the consciousness, or we would not have received it. We would not have created something that in the third density or the third dimension that we embrace as fact or nonfiction. Every original thought, does it come from you? If you really do believe that, your super ego and your self-awareness and your self-driven agendas is overwhelmingly masking you from the truth. I want you to be able to understand how important, how powerful you really are. So, again, if you have any questions or want to dialogue, you can find me on Twitter at Jeff Spike Wong, or you can come to my Facebook page, MMEG369. I want to be able to live in a society that everybody is good to each other. I have often asked the question, what kind of God allows the kind of famine, violence, fear in the world? And I've done a lot of research in the last 40 years. I've done a lot of personal experience. It's no different than you can't make a guitar if you never build one yourself to know how basically difficult, how detailed it needs to be to create something from nothing. And for the things that I'm sharing with you, I've already done. And I survived it. I'm very blessed. I love you all. I encourage you to love yourself and find the truth and be self-aware. I will see you next time.